So this is lesson 13.3 in intermediate algebra. This is called arithmetic sequences. And one of the things, whoops, let's see if I can get any, there we go. An arithmetic sequence is a sequence of numbers in which each term is obtained from the preceding term by adding the same amount. Alright? So, it's also called an arithmetic progression. But if I have numbers like, let's see, 2, 6, 10, 14, etc., this is an arithmetic progression or sequence because we add 4 to each number to get the next one. So what we do is that we say we add 4 to the preceding number to get this one. 4 to the preceding number to get this one. 4 to the preceding number, this one here, to get the next one. So 4 is called the common difference. It's the difference between each number. And if I remember right, they use the letter D to determine the common difference. Yeah, that's what it says. I was just kind of going by memory there, but that's true. Alright, so let's look at some of these. That's, pretty much it for what we're going to be talking about right in this particular part. So if we have 4, 10, 16, 22, and I'm asking you for the common difference, you're going to just look at two of these numbers and take the difference between the two. That's all you're going to do. So the common difference is that. What if I had something, though, that went kind of backwards? So what's the difference between these two numbers? The difference between these two numbers is 7, but to go from here to here, I had to not add 7, I had to subtract 7. So, or in other words, I did add, but I added -7. So to go from 100 to 93, I added -7, added -7, added -7. So my D in this one is -7. Alright, then they get a little bit trickier when you go from 1/2 to 1 to 3/2 to 2. Okay, so how did I go from 1/2 to 1? I added 1/2. How did I go from 1 to 3/2, or basically 1 and 1/2? I added 1/2. So my common difference there is 1/2. Okay, so let's look at the next section here called the general term, and we'll go into a little bit more detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a formula, or they came up with a formula, I'm not going to go into the details of it, of finding an arithmetic progression or sequence here. There's the formula that you need to be able to use. So let's just go ahead and do our first example, example 4, using that formula, and then you'll understand what's going on here. Okay, this goes on and on and on forever. And it says find the general term for the sequence. Alright, so what we're looking for is the formula that we're going to use in order to go from 7 to 10 to 13 to 16. Now when we look at this, we can tell that our common difference is 3. Okay? There's 3 between each one of these. So let's go and put D equals 3. And then that 3 then will eventually be put in that place there. So what else do we know? We know that our first number is 7, and remember, A1, this means what is your first number? So we've got AN equals 7 plus, and what does N represent here? We just leave it as N right now, and then my D is 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to distribute that 3. So we have A of N equals 7 plus 3N minus 3, and then I just keep going here. 7 minus 3 is 4, and I get that right there. And I really need to write this with the n first, so I'm just going to turn this around. Okay, so that is the general term for the sequence. Meaning that if I start out with n equals, come on, let's get this to work, n equals 1, n equals 2, n equals 3. Remember the first, second, third, fourth number. And let's say I put 1 in for n. I put 1 in there, I get 3 plus 4 is 7. And that's what I got up here. I put 2 in. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 4 is 10. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 4 is 13. Okay, so this gives me the formula to get this. My difference between each of these in my arithmetic sequence is 3. That's fine. But the formula to get me these numbers, that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at what is the difference between each of these numbers. I'm looking at what formula I used to go from here to here to here to here. What formula did I use in order to get each of these numbers, so that when I look at these, there's a difference of 3 between there. So I use the difference between the three, or between the numbers, which is 3, in order to come up with a formula to get the 7, the 10, the 13, the 16. Once I have them, I can look and say, oh yeah, the difference between each one of these is 3. But I have to have a formula to get each of these numbers, okay? Especially when it starts at 7, okay? It didn't start at 3 and go to 6, 9, 12, 15, etc. It started at 7, so I had to have some kind of a formula to get me to 7 in the first place. And that's what this formula does here, is it gets me to 7. I put in my first number, or my 1 here, and then that gets me 7, because the 1 represents the first number. Then I put in a 2 for the second number, etc. So I was looking for this formula. So that is about as far as I think I'm going to go in this lesson. We'll get more of this next year later. So in the homework, we're going to cut down. I'm just going to have you do numbers 1 through 12 in this section, because the rest of it gets really, really complicated. We'll just wait for that for later. Okay, so that's it for 13.3.